in fact get them to think critically. I can get them to think critically in Urdu as well as in English as well as in 10 other languages if I use a methodology where they get excited.
That's a very key point. Is critical thinking an important part of our curricula and method of teaching in Pakistan by and large?
No, no, it's not.
So I think you're talking about a much higher level.
And that's what was exciting about this conference. It really did talk about what is wonderful about education and how if I go out in the field with my students who are secondary level students and I'm in the field and people are looking at me and they're saying that isn't instruction. Your students aren't sitting there bored behind a seat. They're having fun. They're collecting fish. They're investigating plants. They're looking at the environment. They're beginning to see the world in a different way. They're constructing new knowledge. How does that relate to anything that has to do with education? That is education. We're getting those students to think for themselves and to be critical about their environments and about themselves. It's just a wonderful new way of instruction.
Absolutely. Dennis and Andy, the problem here we're facing is that every fantastic thing that you're talking about is such a far cry and a far dream for us, given everything that we've been discussing in relation to Pakistan. Now, we want a way forward out of that morass. I mean, when we talk about national education policy, even when policies go from, swing from one end of the pendulum to the other, and then the implementation lacks, and then there are no resources, no resource allocation. We want solutions to first provide a very basic good education where disparities become less, because I don't know what the future of our country is, given the disparities we are creating.
Well, can I say two things? First of all, echoing everything Dennis has said, I would say at one level, critical thinking is not expensive. Critical thinking is a way of thinking. It needs to be encouraged. Certainly I've found, looking at many systems, the biggest barrier is not one language or another language, it is the assessment system often. So even at the very, very elite schools, children are often being channeled down a narrow way of showing their understanding, factual learning, factual recall. I think this is a global problem. I think it's been recognised globally, and many, many systems are saying, whatever their level of resource, if we could say more about expression of the young people for ideas, for critical thinking, for alternative ways of thinking, if we could allow the assessment system to recognise that, teachers would have far more time, as Dennis is saying, to go for depth. And I think that's not just about textbooks, it is about a belief young people make knowledge for themselves if given the right encouragement.
Absolutely, and because you've pinpointed the assessment system, and I think that comes within the purview again of policy, and as far as policy is concerned, I mean, what it reminds me of is something from Alice in Wonderland. Literally, if it's when Alice asked, would you tell me please which way I ought to go from here? And I'm talking about national policy here. The cat replies, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to.
Right.
It seems in Pakistan we don't know where we want to get to. The policies are swinging from left to right, leave alone implementation and assessment systems. Alice then goes, I don't much care where. And then the cat goes, then it doesn't matter which way you do go. And it seems that is what is happening in Pakistan at the moment.
We are now basically focusing our discussion to the quality of education. When we say critical thinking and logical analysis and critical analysis, we are talking about the quality of education. Recently there have been a lot of reports about the quality of education in Pakistan, both pertaining to the public system and the private system. And the quality of education in both the systems is very dismal. It's very disappointing so far as these qualities are concerned. There has been a paradigm shift in teaching learning process over a period of last 1 decade or so. My own area is cognitive psychology. When we talk about cognitive psychology, the more emphasis is to implement a student-centered teaching instead of teacher-led teaching. So student-centered teaching means students must be involved through discussion, through reading assignments, through hands-on activities, no matter whether we are teaching science or social science, whatever the case may be. So it basically involves the delivery of the content by the teacher, and assessment comes later. So basically there are 4 elements of the teaching learning process. One is the objectives. If we aim at producing and developing the critical thinking skill in the students, we have to provide them the same kind of learning experiences. And then we have to assess them. So learning experience will come first and assessment will come later. So if we aim at developing these kinds of skills in the students, and if we have to involve them, they have to construct their own knowledge as a result of negotiation between teacher and the students. And for constructing the knowledge, we have to get rid of a foreign language as a medium of instruction. We have to teach them in the local language so that they should communicate and converse with the teacher. Because of low quality of teachers, the teachers are not competent enough, teachers are not qualified enough to implement the kind of teaching which is needed to develop these kind of skills in the students. So these are basically problems. And this disparity is basically leading to creating a class of people and the low quality in the public schools and the low quality in the low fee paying private schools. It's basically depriving the lower section of the society, and they are providing in kind of a competitive disadvantage that they are not in a position to compete for the job market. And because of that, it is creating a kind of deprivedness in the students and a kind of grievances in the students, which are leading toward their mental confusion and a kind of mental agony and dissatisfaction and grievances against the government, and which is leading to this kind of lawlessness and the kind of...
I would say very, very well outlined, Dr. Iqbal. Here we're going to just wrap up quickly. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Now, we've been discussing comparisons and what are the problems in Pakistan's education system compared a little bit with the UK and the US. Of course, they do not have the same type of problems that we have. The problem is not as severe. Of course, Dr. Iqbal highlighted, Dennis and Andy highlighted a number of issues, and I think the issues that have been highlighted by everybody here are those of, first of all, disparity. Secondly, Andy, I think, said there's a whole lot wrong with assessment systems all over the world, and that includes Pakistan as well. There's a problem of access to education here in Pakistan, and what Dr. Iqbal very importantly said was that we're producing different classes of people, and large number of these classes, the majority of the people are disaffected, they are angry, and there is frustration which is leading to lawlessness and a number of other problems. Certain parts of our schools producing militancy as well. Now we've run out of time here, but I'd like to thank my guests for being here with us today. Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Dr. Iqbal, thank you so much for being with us.